deviation, or the new standard deviation, is going to be the old standard deviation divided by
Square root of
the square root of the sample size. So it's going to be 7 divided by the square root of 100, which is 0.7. Now, tell me about the shape. Is it approximately normal or not? How do you tell if it's approximately normal?
greater than that.
How do you tell if it's approximately normal? Is the sample size greater than or equal to 30? Our sample size is 100. So is it approximately normal? Is the sample size greater than or equal to 30? Ours is 100, so yes. So on your test, you're going to have the answer choices are going to be things like, it's approximately normal with a new mean of 4.3 and I can't fit it all in here, but you get the point. And then it's going to say, shape unknown. And then it's going to say, something like that. Y'all, have I ever done a problem that said shape unknown? Have every time that we've done one of these, it always was greater than 30? So it always ended up being approximately normal? Just saying. So you're going to have multiple answers over here. But these are going to be different. Just saying. Pay attention.
What is that? What does C say? Approximately
Normal, and then it says 4.0 and 7. So it just has different numbers at the end. 4.0 and 7.
So some of that has to be common sense to help.
Correct. So use those answers to help you. All right, for this one. 35% of adults have student loans over $5,000. A simple random sample of 500 adults are obtained. Describe the sampling distribution of p-hat. The sample proportion of adults who have debts of more than $5,000. Example, tell me about the curve, tell me about the new mean, and tell me about the standard deviation. Is this the first type of problem, the middle type of problem, or the last type of problem? It has a P in it. It's going to be the last type of problem. So tell me about the mean. What is the mean for this problem?
0.35.
Your p-hat is going to be 0.35. I'm going to pull this up for a second. This is the P problem. You have your basic problem. You have your sample problem. Sample size of 100. Sample size of 30. And then you have your P problem. Okay? So this is a P problem. So my mean is P. Now we got to calculate the standard deviation. So the first question it was, what is your P? Now, what is my standard deviation? My new standard deviation is going to be the square root of P, 1 minus P over N. So it's going to be the square root of P, which is 0.35, 1 minus 0.35 over what? What's my N? 500. So in my calculator, I'm going to do 0.35 times 1 minus 0.35, get my answer, divide it by 500, get my answer. Then I'm going to do square root of that answer, So that's my new standard deviation. So I've got my new mean, and I've got my new standard deviation. Now it says, tell me about the curve. What test do I have to do to tell me about the curve? So I've got to do those two tests. What's the first test? N is less than or equal, is it less than or less than or equal to?
Less than or equal to.
Point, is it 0.5 or 5?
0.5.
0.5, big N and NP, 1 minus P.
Is greater than or equal to 10.
Okay, so what is my N?
500.
500 is less than or equal to 0.05. If I go up here, we are talking about adult Americans. So we know that this is going to be adult Americans. So that's going to be a big number. And if I do 0.05 times a big number, do you agree that's going to be bigger than 500?
Yeah.
So we already know that that's going to be a yes. Now, to do the other one, N was 500, P was 0.35, then we do 1 minus 0.35. 500 times 0.35 times 1 minus 0.35. Hasn't failed us yet. Is it greater than or equal to 10? So what do we say about the curve? It's approximately normal, just like I've said every other time. So for this problem, there's 3 answers. We say that it's approximately normal, we say that our new mean is 0.35, and we say that our new standard deviation is 0.0213. And all of those answers are going to be on a single line.
Okay.
All right, let's look at another one. Our mean is 50, our standard deviation is 6. Compute the probability of x greater than 72. What type of problem is this? The first type, the second type, or the third type? First type. Here's the mean, here's the standard deviation, give me an answer. Here's my mean, here's my standard deviation. Go to 72 and do greater than. We are finding the probability, which means we're finding the shade, which means we're doing normal CDF. Where did my shade begin?
72.
And where did it end? My mean and my standard deviation. Now, for this problem, you can tell I made it up, but for this problem, what is my answer going to, well, it's according to how many places they tell me to round it to. See your e to the negative 4. That means it's going to be 0.123, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to have 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 1, 2, 2, 8, 9. So if they told me to round it to 4 decimal places, it would be 0.0001. Make sure you pay attention to that E. Cool?
Yeah.
That's the ones we hope and pray we get lots of. You make a monthly average of $5,400, a standard deviation of 600. The daily revenue totals will be monitored for the next 30 days. What is probability that the mean for the next 30 days will exceed 5,000. Is it type 1, type 2, or type 3? You make a monthly average of 5,400, a standard deviation of 600. The daily revenue totals will be monitored for the next 30 days. What is the probability that the mean for the next 30 days will exceed 5,000? Is it a straight up? Is it a sample? Or do you have percentages?
I think it's just regular problem.
Yeah.
Do we see percentages?
No.
No, so we can get rid of the last one. Is it a straight up or is it a sample?
I think it's straight. Because of the probability word.
Probability just means that we're doing shading, which means we're doing normal CDF.
Which means it's the first one.
Raise your hand if you think it's the first one. Raise your hand if you think it's the second one.
Could be is a group.
It is the second one. That 30 days, that's going to be your sample. That sample of 30 days. That's your sample size of 30 days. So, we have a mean of
5,400.
5,400. Our original standard deviation is 600, but when we redo the standard deviation, what is our new standard deviation? How do we get our new standard deviation?
109.5,
Tell me how we did it.
600 over square root of 30.
The old standard deviation divided by the square root of the size of the group. So it's going to be 600 over the square root of 30. Okay? We are going 5,000, we'll exceed 5,000. So we are going to start at 5,000. If you are going to exceed $5,000, does that mean that you're going 5,000 or more or 5,000 or less?
5,000 or more.
5,000 or more. It says that we are finding the probability. Finding the probability means that we're going to find the shade. That means we're going to do normal CDF. Where did my shade begin? 5,000. Where did my shade end? What was my mean? And I've got to redo my standard deviation because it was group data, because it had those 30 days. So I'm just going to type it in like it is. You could type it in with the answer. So I'm going to do normal CDF, 5,000, 99999, 5,400, and then 600 divided by the square root of 30. So that means that my shade represented 99.99% of the curve. That was a little bit tricky because of that 30 days. Area to the right of a standard normal curve of z equals negative 1.05. The area to the right of a standard normal curve of z equals negative 1.05. Is that the first type, the middle type, or the last type? First type. It didn't say we had a sample size, and it didn't say we had a percentage. It's just straight up, here's the data, figure it out. Here's my z equals negative 1.05, and we're going to the right. It says we want to find the area, so what are we going to do? Normal CDF. Where do I start?
Negative 1.05.
Where do I end? What is my mean?
0.
So I'm gonna do second bars, normal CDF, negative 1.05, comma, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, comma, 0, comma, 1. Oops, it would help if I hit enter before I drag it over. So that means that 85% of that graph is shaded. The biggest part is figuring out which, and I mean, for this one, I would definitely do some kind of data dump like this on your test. You know, if it's a sample, I mean, if it's, this one y'all have down pat. These two, I mean, this middle one is gonna say something like it has a sample size of 100, or a sample of 36, or a sample of, it's gonna say something like it's got a sample size of blah, blah, blah. This one's gonna say 25% or 36%. It's gonna have some kind of percentage in the problem, or it's either gonna have like a P or a P hat. It's gonna have some kind of P or percentage in the problem. That's telling you it's gonna be one of these problems. Sample size is telling you it's gonna be one of these problems. If it doesn't have any of that, it's straight up one of these problems. And if it says find probability, that's telling you that you're finding the shade, which means you're gonna do a norm. If it tells you to find, if it gives you the probability, then you're gonna be finding the z-score, which means you're gonna be doing an inverse norm. If it's a sample, n's gotta be greater than or equal to 30. If it's a probability, you've gotta do both of these. And y'all, we've already figured it, but you do need to know these because there was a problem where we had to figure out what the n was. So you've gotta know these. But I mean, we've already said every single time it was approximately normal. But I mean, do it and double check it. But I would data dump all of this on my test and lay it down. Now, on your formula sheet, you do have, this is the 7 and 8 test. For 7, they told you that z-score was data minus mean over standard deviation. And they told you that the mean plus however many z-scores, and we talked about last time, that the mean plus 1 standard deviation on either side was what percent? The mean plus 1 standard deviation? 68. The mean plus 2 standard deviations? And the mean plus 3 standard deviations? And y'all, I think that's even on here. If you scroll back up, back in the olden days, look right there. It's even back up there. And then in chapter 8, this is like that second type of problem. The mean is the mean. The standard deviation, the new standard deviation is the old standard deviation divided by the square root of the size of the group. So this is the type of problem when it says sample size of 36, sample size of 100. That's this type of problem. This is the P problem. Your mean is going to be whatever your P is. Your mean is going to be 0.23 if it's 23%. This is your new standard deviation, also known as the SEM, the standard error of the mean. P times 1 minus P over N. So that's given to you on your formula sheet. The only thing that's not given to you is those two tests. Y'all know the N greater than 30 for this one, but you don't know, you've got to have those two for this one. P hat is X over N. That's if you want to know the sample proportion, and I tell you that 20 people out of the 40 people like pink, you would do 20 over 40. 20 like pink out of 40 out of the sample. Are we feeling a little better? I did half the review in class on Monday. I have all the problems out there, and then I did half the review today. Get the homework done, do some more reviewing, get past that test, and then Monday and Wednesday, I'll finish up 9 and 10, and then we'll start hard on reviewing for that final exam. But get the test, homework and test out of the way for 7 and 8. And then we'll start working on that 9 and 10 and the test next week. And if you have questions, you can stay, but otherwise I am done. All right.